in your new company. Where does that leave you?
I do have exciting news of my own, and I will enlighten you very soon.
Are you digging for dirt on me?
No.
Did Kane put you up to this?
Okay, what's it about?
Audra, there's something that you need to know about the kind of person she really is.
The air in the Genoa City Police Department held a peculiar chill, one that had little to do with the antiquated air conditioning unit humming in the corner of the interrogation room. It was the cold sweat of desperation, the frigid grip of a life unraveling. Seated under the unflinching glare of a fluorescent light, his hands cuffed to the bolted-down metal table, was Holden Hook Snyder. The rugged, usually unflappable patriarch of the Snyder family looked small. The charges were serious: assault, breaking and restraining orders, a litany of poor decisions made in the white-hot fury of paternal protection. Across from him, Detective Chance Chancellor observed the man with a mix of professional detachment and personal pity. He'd known Holden for years, respected him. But the law was the law, and the evidence, spurred by a damning testimony from a terrified Sharon Newman, was overwhelming. "Holden, you're in a deep hole," Chance stated, his voice even and calm. "The DA is looking at this and seeing a man who is a danger to the community. Your history of vigilante actions, even when well-intentioned, is counting against you. It's time to stop digging. A full confession, showing genuine remorse, is your only play here." Holden's jaw tightened. He stared at the scuffed surface of the table, seeing not the nicks and scratches of decades, but the faces of his children. Ethan. Jude. His mind raced to the source of all this fresh hell: Sienna. The beautiful, enigmatic woman who had swooped into his son's life with the grace of a swan and the sting of a scorpion. She was a poison, and he was determined to be the antidote, no matter the cost to himself. "I was protecting my son," Holden growled, his voice low and gravelly. "That's all I've ever done. That's all any of this is." Protection. Chance leaned forward, his elbows on the table. "Holden, you threatened her in public. You were found lurking outside her apartment. You sent her texts that my tech guys described as unhinged. This isn't protection. This is obsession." A bitter laugh escaped Holden's lips. "Obsession? You think this is about me being obsessed with her? Chance, you have no idea. You're looking at the wrong person. You're all looking at the wrong person." The door to the interrogation room opened, and Nick Newman stepped in, his expression a carefully curated mask of neutral concern. He'd come as soon as he'd heard, partly out of loyalty to an old friend, and partly because anything involving Sharon these days inevitably pulled him into its orbit. "Chance, give us a minute?" Nick asked, not taking his eyes off Holden. Chance considered it, then nodded, pushing back his chair. "5 minutes, Nick. He needs to understand the gravity of his situation." The detective left, the door clicking shut with a sound of finality that echoed in the small room. Nick pulled out the chair Chance had vacated and sat down. He didn't speak at first, just let the silence stretch, allowing the frantic energy in the room to settle. He saw the wild look in Holden's eyes, the tremor in his cuffed hands. This was more than just a father's rage. This was the look of a man who had seen a ghost. "Holden," Nick began, his voice soft but firm. "Talk to me. What is this really about? What has you so twisted up inside that you'd throw your entire life away?" Holden's eyes, bloodshot and weary, lifted to meet Nick's. "She's going to destroy him, Nick. She's going to take everything from Ethan, his innocence, his trust, his future, and she's going to leave him in ruins. I can't let that happen. I won't." "Sienna?" Nick asked, frowning. "I get it, Holden. You don't like the girl. But Ethan is a grown man. He makes his own choices, his own mistakes. You can't body check every problem that comes his way." "You don't understand." Holden's voice rose, the chains on his cuffs rattling against the table as he slammed his fists down. "This isn't some gold digger or a flaky artist. This is different. This is calculated. It's a masterpiece of deception." Nick leaned in closer, his curiosity now genuinely piqued. "What are you talking about?" A desperate, almost manic light shone in Holden's eyes. He was cornered, backed against a wall with the wreckage of his own freedom lying at his feet. In that moment, he made a calculation. His own fate was likely sealed, but if he could take Sienna down with him, if he could expose the truth and save his son, then his sacrifice would be worth it. He needed an ally with power, with resources, with a vested interest in the truth. He needed Nick Newman. "I hired a PI," Holden confessed, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "Months ago. The moment I saw the way she looked at Ethan. It wasn't love, Nick. It was assessment, like a surgeon identifying a weak organ." The PI hit wall after wall. Her background was a fortress, too clean, too perfect. It screamed of a professional cover. Nick's brow furrowed. A professional what? "It took every last dime I had and a few favors from people I wish I'd never met," Holden continued, ignoring the question. But he finally broke through. "The name, Sienna Mills? It's a ghost. A fabrication. A work of art created by one of the best identity forgers in Europe, paid for with a significant sum of money traced back to a shell corporation in the Cayman Islands." The air in the room grew thicker. Nick felt a familiar, cold dread begin to pool in his stomach. Genoa City was no stranger to secrets and assumed identities, but the level of detail Holden was describing was far beyond the norm. "Who is she, Holden?" Nick asked, his voice barely a whisper. Holden's eyes locked onto Nick's, ensuring he had his full, undivided attention. The money that paid for her new life, for her new face, for her entire Sienna persona, it didn't come from some mysterious benefactor. It came from an inheritance she accessed and liquidated the moment she turned 25 and the final trust fund barrier fell. Whose inheritance? Nick pressed, the cold dread now turning to ice. A grim, tragic smile touched Holden's lips. The money came from the estate of Cassie Newman. The name hung in the air between them, sucking all the oxygen from the room. Nick recoiled as if he'd been physically struck. His face, usually so controlled, went pale. Cassie, his daughter. His beautiful, lost daughter, whose death had left a wound in his soul that had never fully healed. That's insane," Nick stammered, his mind reeling. "That's not possible. Her estate, it was handled years ago. This is a sick joke, Holden." "Is it?" Holden's voice was relentless, pressing his advantage. "Think, Nick. Think about her. The age is right. The timing is perfect. The PI found a birth certificate, buried so deep it was almost lost forever. A child born to a woman Cassie's mother, Sheila Carter, knew in a brief stint at a halfway house. A child Cassie, in her infinite, loving heart, took in and vowed to protect after the mother died. She kept it a secret from everyone, even from you, probably to protect the girl from the chaos of our lives. She set up a trust, a future for her, managed by lawyers who were bound by confidentiality from the grave." Nick's world was tilting on its axis. Memories long dormant began to surface. Cassie's fervent desire to help lost causes. Her secretive trips in the months before the accident. A lingering sadness in her eyes he could never quite place. He had chalked it up to the typical Newman family drama. Now he wondered. "Her name," Holden said, his voice trembling with the weight of the revelation. The final piece of the puzzle clicked into place with a deafening silence. Nick felt the room spin. Sheila Carter. The name was a curse in Genoa City, a synonym for pure, unadulterated evil. The woman who had tormented his family for generations, who had caused immeasurable pain and suffering. And her blood ran through the veins of the woman who was now sharing a bed with his son, Ethan. "She's not just a gold digger, Nick," Holden whispered, his energy spent. "She's a Newman by association and a Carter by blood. She has a claim to Cassie's legacy and the twisted genetics of a psychopath. She came here for her inheritance, yes. But what does someone like that do once they get a taste of the Newman wealth and power? What does she do to Ethan when she's done? Or worse, what does she become?" Nick stood up abruptly, his chair scraping harshly against the linoleum floor. He paced the small room, running a hand through his hair. The implications were staggering, a tidal wave of potential disaster. Ethan was in love with a woman who was, in the most convoluted way, his niece. A woman who was the direct descendant of the devil herself. The scandal would be nuclear. The emotional fallout would destroy his son. Does she know? Nick finally asked, his voice hoarse. I don't know, Holden admitted, slumping back in his chair. My PI couldn't get that deep. But the money trail doesn't lie, Nick. She accessed the funds. She bought this new identity. She came to Genoa City, and, of all the people in the world, she found Ethan. Is that fate? Or is it a plan? The door opened again, and Chance stepped back in. Time's up. Have you gotten through to him, Nick? Nick turned to face the detective, his expression now a carefully constructed wall of calm. The frantic, horrified man from moments before was gone, replaced by the steely resolve of a Newman protecting his own. Holden has given me a lot to think about, Chance, Nick said, his voice steady. And he's right about one thing. This situation is far more complex than it appears on the surface. I'll be retaining a lawyer for him. The best one money can buy. Chance looked surprised. Nick, the evidence is subject to interpretation, Nick interrupted. Holden was acting on information he believed to be true, information concerning a direct and credible threat to my family. I suggest you start looking into Sienna Mills a little more closely. Dig into her past. I have a feeling you'll find the real criminal isn't the man sitting in these handcuffs. As Nick strode from the interrogation room, he didn't look back at Holden. His mind was already a whirlwind of strategy and damage control. He had to verify Holden's story, and he had to do it quietly. He had to protect Ethan from a heartbreak of unimaginable proportions. And he had to confront the living, breathing ghost of his daughter's past, a ghost who carried the most dangerous bloodline in Genoa City. Holden watched him go, a sliver of grim satisfaction cutting through his despair. He was still under arrest, his future uncertain. But he had launched his missile. He had handed Nick Newman the truth, a truth so explosive it could shatter the entire Newman family. Now, the game had changed. The battle for his son's soul was no longer his alone to fight. It had just become a Newman war. And as the door closed, sealing him in his cold, sterile cell, Holden Snyder knew he had just set in motion a chain of events that would forever alter the landscape of Genoa City. The secret was out. The Young and the Restless, YNR, spoilers reveal that Kyle Abbott, Michael Mueller, will have at least 4 revenge targets soon. Some major payback plots are on the way, so we should talk about Kyle's need for vengeance and which characters he'll go after. 1. Holden. Kyle has already been suspicious and concerned about Holden Novak, Nathan Owens, making moves on Claire Newman, Haley Aaron. It's clear that Kyle doesn't like or trust Holden, but this growing rivalry is about to soar to new heights. Kyle will inevitably find out about Holden taking Claire to bed in Los Angeles, so that's going to make him loathe Holden even more. It'll provide some extra motivation when it comes to Kyle's desire to expose Holden's past mistakes and take him down. 2. Audra. Of course, Kyle won't forget about his desire to make Audra pay. Claire and Kyle would still be a happy couple if it weren't for all the drama Audra unleashed while working for Victor Newman, Eric Braden. Since Kyle still blames Audra for setting his split from Claire in motion, he'll go after revenge on her, too. Kyle will be determined to reveal what really happened between Holden and Claire. 3. Victor. Although Kyle has been pretty fixated on repairing his love life, that'll change now that Jabot is facing such a terrible threat. Kyle was summoned back to GC to help deal with all the corporate chaos, so this is the start of him getting more involved in his family's work issues. Victor is all set to unleash the AI program that Phyllis Summers, Michelle Stafford, surrendered to him as part of their deal. Kyle will help Jack Abbott, Peter Bergman, Diane Jenkins Abbott, Susan Walters, and Billy Abbott, Jason Thompson, take a bold stand against Victor soon enough. 4. Phyllis. Since Phyllis leaked the software to Victor and wants to take over Jabot in the end, she surely won't escape the revenge she deserves. Jack is hoping to convince Phyllis to join Team Abbott, but she only looks out for herself in most YNR storylines. Every word that comes out of Phyllis's mouth tends to be a lie or some sort of twisted manipulation. Kyle won't stand for Phyllis running the show at Jabot, especially since she's been playing dirty with Victor. This whole mess is why Phyllis should also find herself on Kyle's revenge list, which is getting longer every day. The Young and the Restless spoilers say Kyle is headed down a vengeful path, So stick with us for updates on all payback news and fierce face-offs to come. This week's episodes promise a mix of emotional reunions, identity shocks, and long-awaited answers. As familiar faces return and hidden pasts resurface, fans can expect both nostalgia and tension to dominate the week. Mitch Bacall, played by Roger Howarth, meets with Holden Novak, Nathan Owens, sparking speculation that the show is setting up a major reveal. Sharon Newman, Sharon Case, tells Nick that she saw Mitch and believes he is Matt Clark, Nick's longtime rival. The revelation triggers Nick's protective instincts, especially after Matt's past assaults on Sharon. Unable to rest on rumors, Nick seeks out Mitch himself to confirm whether his old enemy has returned under a new name. Given their history, this confrontation could end violently, potentially landing Nick in trouble with the law once again. Victor Newman's intervention may be the only thing standing between Nick and another jail stint. As these scenes unfold, fans will likely learn more about Mitch's background through his interaction with Holden. The storyline hints that Holden may be tied to shadowy dealings or even serve as Mitch's accomplice, deepening the mystery surrounding both M.E.N. and another major moment. Noah Newman finally wakes after weeks in a coma. Doctors remove his facial bandages, revealing his new appearance, and officially introducing Lucas Adams in the role. The change is reportedly explained through reconstructive surgery following Noah's accident. Wasn't Sienna.
It was Sierra.
Sierra Carter. And she's not just some random girl who charmed your son. She's Cassie's secret daughter. She's Sheila Carter's